If you're like a KU author or wide and you want to start dipping into direct sales, you can use that strategy, link a bonus novella to your direct store, and they can
wherever your cursor is, you can do it by the line, by the sentence, or by the paragraph. So you can actually focus out just on that one line or that one paragraph.
I could say the first Friday of every month, I launch in paperback, ebook, and audio, and I will never launch if I can't launch in all three. And so everyone gets this experience.
Once you start getting the sweet alien man chest money, you become addicted to it. And I just don't know if that's something that I can commit to at this point in time. Hey, folks, welcome to the BookFunnel podcast. My name is Jack. I'm our lead author support specialist here at BookFunnel. I am joined today, as always, by my co-hosts, Kelly Tansey and Emma Allison. And our guest today for episode 10, Katie Cross, a legend here at BookFunnel, has been for a long, long time. Katie, it's good to have you here.
Thanks. I'm so excited.
We of course met up with you at Author Nation in Vegas back in November. Decided, hey, we got to get Katie on the podcast. You rescheduled on us. I thought you were just, blowing me off. I'm giving you a hard time.
So, I expected it.
But for those watching who may not know who you are, tell us a little bit about you. Who is Katie Cross, the legend, the myth, the
man, the myth, right? The woman.
Right.
I am a young adult fantasy author, and I like selling books through my website. That's how most people in the author world know me, is I have money and selling through my website. So I write fantasy. I live in Montana. I have 2 kids under 10, and that's a pretty good overview.
Yeah. Well, and that's going to be a large part of our discussion today is you're selling books direct through your own website, direct sales. Obviously, at BookFunnel, to us, that's a big deal, right? And so it's a natural conversation, I think, for us to have with you. And we'll get to that for sure. We have, a couple other things to touch basis on here with, and what we like to do at the beginning of each episode, the members of the BookFunnel team, at least, is we like to rib each other just a little bit on our current creative projects and making sure that we're holding each other accountable. We're kind of our own little mini accountability team.
Love it.
So I'm going to, instead of picking on Kelly first, I'm going to pick on Emma. Emma, you were making a lot of progress taking Becca Brinkmeyer's whole method, right?
Yeah.
How is that going? Are you keeping that up? Is that
I am keeping that up. And Becca, if you're listening, I owe you a drink at the next conference. That's a couple of them. 'Cause I got 57K in January after I caved and got an iPhone and then started doing her method. So
nice. Awesome. That's encouraging because I'm wanting to try that too.
What's this method? What's your method?
So go ahead, Emma. You can explain it probably better than I can.
Well, she made a comment when we were at Author Nation that she dictates everywhere. And then she's like, I'll dictate anything. I don't give a fudge anymore. You got to get rid of the shyness of dictate stuff in public. And then I was like, And then I was like, I want to do that. I tried it on my phone, but I had an Android, so I could not get Scrivener on there. So I caved, and I used to be hardcore anti-iPhone, but I caved and I got an iPhone, put Scrivener on it, and now I'm a ride or die iPhone girly. But the magic is, since I'm intuitive and I do a lot of stream of consciousness writing, I could stop, grab my iPhone, I have it on voice control, and just open Scrivener and then just start wherever I'm at. And I was doing a lot of it late at night. So it wasn't even interfering with, my daytime duties or anything like that. So it kind of opened up that really late night slot for me because it's just chilling in front of the TV at 10, 11 p.m. and hey, dictate a scene real quick.
Yeah.
But it's working really well.
And Becca will dictate on the go a lot too. So I think that was part of the advice was she will dictate into her phone, just when she's driving to the grocery store, she's at her kid's basketball game. So she's dictating throughout the day in addition to her dedicated, writing sessions.
I tried the grocery store. It was surprisingly nice because the background music and the aisles, there's just enough audio-visual stimulation to soothe my ADHD, but at the same time, not too much so I can focus. And I just started wandering around the aisles, vaguely making sure I'm not bumping into people at the zombie.
Sometimes you never know where that inspiration is going to come from. There's that one
Yeah.
writer, Amy Dawes, who was getting her tires changed, and she belted out like a ton of words while she was waiting. And she was so inspired, she ended up like sitting there. She asked them if she could come back and write in their little waiting room. And she wrote the entire book, and it became like a bestseller. Like, it's
That's
always
awesome.
so inspiring to hear these like stories. Like, they actually were like, yeah, sure, come sit in our waiting room and write your book. And yeah,
That's
they were
cool.
really cool about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really fun.
For my part, I'll volunteer. So I have been under the weather a little bit last week, and then over the weekend too. So I've been focusing on a lot of my outlining, making some progress there, and getting all that out of the way. For those who know, like a few episodes back, I said I was going to get all that out of the way, and then I'm going to dive into my words. And I've been thinking about this, and it's started to like really click for me when I look back at like when the spats of writing that I've had in the past, where like I would write really intensely for a period of time, and then I would stop because I didn't have something else outlined and ready to go, and I had to make that transition back. And so I'm feeling good about it because the outlining, I picked up a lot of momentum, and I'm ready to I don't know. I'm testing out some dictation stuff because I want to dive into dictation too. I don't want to do too much at once. It's probably going to be the middle of March before I'm actually putting words down. But I'm outlining a ton of stuff ahead of time so that then I can just write as long as the inspiration is there.
Is one of those outlines a science fiction romance, Jack?
No.
We're going to put you in the hot seat. We need you to transition. We need you to have a SFR pen name and bring in that sweet alien man chest money.
You know, the problem is once you go that route, you can't like kind of go back.
Yeah.
And once you start getting the sweet alien man chest money, you become addicted to it. And I just don't know if that's something that I can commit to at this point in time. So,
We'll bring you over to the blue side soon.
but no, and I know I've mentioned before that the thought of collaborating with a science fiction romance author to have somebody write a romance in my universe, because I'm building a big universe. Everything I'm writing, even multiple series, are in the same universe. And so the idea being that co-author a series with a SFR author, and then maybe some of those readers who are also interested in just sci-fi will jump over and read the other stuff. I don't know. I don't know that I have the tools in my toolbox to write the romance.
Bookmatch.com. If you're watching and you're an SFR author, slide into Jack's DM. He married, yo. Keep it professional.
Okay. Yeah. Well, when we say slide into the DMs, yeah. Well, let's be clear what we're talking about. Be very clear, honey. If you're watching this, they're not.
Don't worry. We're watching all the ladies. We got you, Book. We got you.
Okay. Yeah. Don't worry about it. I am just fine. Kelly, I know you were working on some stuff.
Yeah, I've just been working on that romance that I was collaborating with. I've been
That's
into
right.
a shared world with 20 other authors, and I've just been trying to get words down for that, and not letting myself get blocked, because that seems to be the thing. Is like it's flowing. It's like, oh, where's the story going? Now I feel like it's dumb. So as authors, we get that. And I took Emma's advice, and I got that book from Christopher Downing. Is that his name?
Yeah.
And Jack, I'm going to recommend it. It's about dictation. It's about getting started with dictation, and how it actually has like things that practices and workshop kind of your own brain to get yourself into a mindset, which is a big part of it. So it's a good book. I've only gotten about partway through it, but I was like, okay, yeah. It's like he actually has you read something and then record yourself and then say, yeah, you're not going slow enough when you dictate. Your dictation should be very slow.
Right.
So I've been working on that and just trying to get words in. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah. No, we are actually going to have him on a future episode of the podcast.
Very cool.
I think we
I'm
have
excited.
him booked, so it'll be fun. Katie, what about you? I know you're the guest, but we're familiar with you enough here at BookFunnel. What have you been working on? I know we're gonna get to the story behind the story segment later, but just in this last week or so, what's your writing been like?
So I finished the final draft of a book called Autumn of Axes that launches March 1st. I'm supposed to be recording it right now, but if you can hear me, that's not happening. So while I'm waiting to be able to record, I finished the third draft and sent to my editors my next network series novel, which is the 11th one. So I'm just cranking out these manuscripts to get them in the production process, which it was like right before this that I finished it and was like, I'm done, I'm out. So I was like,
sweet.
Feels so good.
Sweet. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Well, we're going to come to our first segment now, tips from the trenches, specifically self-publishing tips from the trenches. Sometimes I don't preface that. Like, we want to be very specific. This is self-publishing advice. Of course, here at the BookFunnel, the team, Kelly, Emma, and myself, we are all self-published authors, but we're also, BookFunnel support specialists, author support specialists. And so we have some tips, not just on self-publishing, but writing and all kinds of stuff. And of course, Katie, our guest today, is a legend in the self-publishing community. I'm not trying to hype you up too much here. This is actually just right, Katie. I know you might think.
Low.
Right. So we've got some tips for you guys today on self-publishing, on writing. Who wants to go first?
I can go first. This is specific to Scrivener. In Scrivener, you actually have a way that you can fade out full sentences or paragraphs so that you are only focusing on specific lines or paragraphs that you want to actually be focused on editing. And it actually kind of fades out everything else around it. And I'm trying to think of where I just had it open. It's under View and then Text Editing. So if you go to Scrivener, it's View, Text Editing, and then Focus. And then when you're on that page, and when wherever your cursor is, you can do it by the line, by the sentence, or by the paragraph. So you can actually focus out just on that one line or that one paragraph. And it helps you to kind of get rid of all the rest of it and just focus on the lines you're editing.
Yeah.
So that was fine.
No, I know I've used that in the past before, and it was very helpful because you're just focusing on one thing at a time. Emma, what do you got for us today?
Data responsive. I was trying to see if that tip would work in Scrivener on iPhone. Wait a minute.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't tried it on my phone. My Scrivener on my phone isn't working as great, but it definitely works on a desktop.
Tip from the trenches. Well, if you're like Emma, do not be like Emma and have anywhere between 20 to 40 half-done or quarter-done projects at a time. I'm not exaggerating. And you keep adding new shiny. Not exaggerating. Creating project matrix. I created a project matrix. I had ChatGPT do all the technical stuff for me, but I created like the variables that my brain thinks of when it's trying to catalog what project is more important than the other. And I cataloged, I figured out how I wanted each variable to be weighed. Y'all don't have to do all this, but this is how I do it. And then I had the AI give me what are they called in Excel or Google Sheets? Formulas, that thing. That's exactly why I needed help, because I don't even know what they're called. And then, you just sort, and it thinks just like me, so I can't bullshit it. And ever since I've been using that project matrix, I've been able to focus and actually get projects done.
That's cool.
So, yeah, we might actually publish some books this year.
Yeah. No, that's
it is the goal.
I think for some authors, especially who are like very creative personality types, something like that maybe seems a little, I don't know, too artificial or too, you're just working on what you're inspired to do in the moment. But if you're trying to get stuff done, I think it kind of comes down to, like, at the end of the day,
working on what I'm inspired on in the moment is what got me 40 half-done projects, Jack.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. That's the point I'm trying to make. Exactly.
No, and I get it. But we have to, especially if we're really chase shiny ADHD, you have to have boundaries around that. Let yourself be creative, get inspired. I still let myself get inspired. I throw all of my inspiration into its own Scrivener project, and then I go and plug it into the matrix and let the matrix tell me when I can start working on it. And it soothes me, even if it's a lie.
Well, hey, no, that might be worth a try, especially for some folks out there who are maybe in your same situation, or they've got a lot of half-done projects, and they're, because you can start to build momentum on something and then you lose it. And then that's where you're feeling that need to go work on something new because you want to feel like you're making progress on something. But the problem is if you don't push through and sometimes just have the thing tell you what to do. This is kind of related to that.
I always have 2 to 3 projects going at a time because everybody does have those moments where you need to set project A aside and let it back drain. So I am working on 2 to 3 projects at a time, but it's just we can't work on 40 at a time.
Right. And so this to kind of piggyback off of that, this isn't my tip for this podcast, but kind of a simpler way to do this. If maybe you're like trying to decide between a couple of things, maybe, a handful of different choices that you, have to make. Roll a dice, assign each project a number, roll a dice. Everybody has D20s lying around, right? Right? Or is that just me?
Ever.
And then see what result comes up. And then what I also do is I pay attention to how I feel when I find out what the result is.
Yeah.
And so if the result is one project comes up, I'm like, oh crap, I really didn't want to do that. Then I realize I should prioritize that lower. And I can roll again. But that's another kind of thing that I've done in the past that I think is kind of similar to that. If you want to do something a little without building a whole, project matrix and that sort of thing and being all fancy like Emma.
If anybody wants my template, just let me know. I'll give it to you. I mean,
we can add it to the show notes.
It's not proprietary.
Yeah, we could add it to the show notes even.
So a lot of people ask me how I gather data and I know what data to gather. So one of my hacks or one of my tips, especially for like efficiency and focusing on where you're making money or what you want done, is I just have an Excel spreadsheet that's always up on my Chrome, and it has a couple of tabs. And every single morning before I dive into email, before I dive into stories or anything else, I fill out all of the different spreadsheets. So I pull my Facebook ad data, I pull my sales data. There's a couple other things like some subscribers and where they're landing, what my BookFunnel downloads are doing, all that stuff. I just look at it every day because it does 2 things. It reminds me of my very firm goals for the year so that every decision I make is headed toward that specific goal. And then it reminds me where I'm at. So on a day-to-day basis, I can see like audience trends. And it takes me about 5 minutes, well, maybe 7, 5 to 10 minutes to like just pull the data. I just have it on routine now. Like all of I use Chrome and I have like tabs. So all of them are saved. You know what I mean? It's like all really easy. And in 10 minutes, I can get an overview of my sales and my ads data for the whole company and look at how things are going. And I think normalizing just doing that for 10 minutes at the beginning of my day, make sure it gets done every day. And then I just turn that part of my brain off and I go into writing.
Yeah.
That's helped me manage being a business owner and an author.
Right. And that's something that I bet you have to, it becomes a juggling act to keep the creative aspect of your business in the air and then that financial aspect. Not everybody, and I don't know what your team surrounding you looks like, but because I know a lot of authors are out there and they're doing everything themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And there are folks out there who have teams to handle that stuff. But, if you're starting to come up in self-publishing, you're going to wind up being in that position at some point in time where you're going to have to do you're going to have to make all the decisions yourself. Right. And you have to pay attention to the money and you have to pay attention to the creative aspect of it. So that's a good way to like you have it it's something you do at the beginning of each day. You kind of maybe, I guess, getting it out of the way makes so you don't have to like worry about it throughout the rest of the day or pay attention to it.
I think part of it is it's one more decision I don't have to make. So I just know that I wake up and I do it and it's efficient and it's repeated every day. So nothing is lost. And so there's so much time that we waste and like, where do I even start? Right. Like there's so many emails, but I don't have to ask myself where I start. I just start with a spreadsheet and then I like have it in the back of my mind as I'm answering emails, making ad decisions, like talking to people. I'm like, well, my sales were low here. I could compensate here. You know what I mean? Like when you remove decisions and standardize a process. So this is my morning process. I make tea. I sit down. I put a stupid show in my headphones because I think better when I have noise. Emma, you and I are a lot alike. And then I just do my spreadsheet. So it's like there's never a decision for me. And so it removes the like overwhelm of the beginning. And I think that is actually probably the best part.
Okay, yeah.
You standardize something. You don't have to decide where to begin. You don't have to decide how it starts. And so you just start the day rolling and the mindset effect just snowballs, right? Like it's easier.
Right. Right. And that data over time, I bet, is also pretty useful. I think you could let that data, some folks, if they're not paying attention to it, you prioritize different things that really you shouldn't be prioritizing if you were actually paying attention to all of that data and checking up on it every day.
Yeah,
So
I cannot tell you the advantages I've had of being able to say, well, I know exactly how my audience acts under these circumstances because I've looked at the data every day.
Sure.
Right? Like it
Sure.
just pays out long run for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So my tip for today, a little bit of a combination of things. BookFunnel has added in the last couple of years. I'm not sure exactly how old all these features are, but we've added quite a number of features that allow you to customize your landing pages. Obviously, we have things like adding custom themes to your landing pages, adding custom domains to your landing pages. And recently, we added the ability for you to add custom images, which is great. We did a webinar on it last week, actually, that kind of went in depth on the whole topic. But another thing that I think people neglect a little bit is adding samples, adding a sample link to your BookFunnel landing pages, which we have a feature for that makes it really slick and easy for readers to read a sample of your book and do that before they join your mailing list, if it's an email collection page, or if it's a sales landing page before they ever purchase your book. And you have the control right there on your BookFunnel landing page to include whatever part of the book you want in that sample. And then also you get to decide where you want them to go at the end of the sample. The custom call to action, you can link them back to the original page, or you can do something custom with it if you want to. So if you haven't yet already, adding sample links to your landing pages, I think I have seen some anecdotal data. I don't have hard data, but I've seen some real anecdotal data that landing pages with those sample links do convert better. Of course, it depends on your sample. It does depend on your sample. You gotta choose that wisely. Overall, right? I think you should be trying to make your landing pages as much of an experience as possible and customizing them in that way, adding themes, adding a sample. Emma's recently, she's been doing some landing page makeovers for people. And we're going to actually upload some of those here to the channel. So you want to keep an eye out for those. We're taking authors' landing pages and doing a total revamp. And part of that process is also like adding that sample link, adding some custom images, adding, the custom theme, really making your landing page stand out. So don't ignore sample links though, because all the pretty shiny stuff, right, is those images and the custom theme and the pretty colors, but don't ignore just the simple functional tool of having that sample link there for people. So that's my tip for today. All right, we're on to not our first, excuse me. Let me restart that. All right, we are on to today's topic, which is Katie Cross. Katie Cross is the topic today. Well, we're talking about more directly. We're talking about direct sales. And Katie, you are a BFD in direct sales, right? All right. I'm trying to keep it PG-13 here. Yeah. Right. But when you talk about direct sales with authors, your name inevitably comes up. There's some other names too, but Katie Cross comes up. And I remember when I first started working for BookFunnel. So we're going back to 2019, right? 2018, 2019, when I first started working for BookFunnel. You were like, when I say you're a legend at BookFunnel, I'm not overselling it. You were one of the first to really go at direct sales, whole ham and make it work. I often talk about, and this is something I mentioned before, how at one point in time, the idea of just self-publishing a book, people would laugh at you. And then that became normal and acceptable. And okay, yeah, that makes sense. Amazon, all this stuff. Okay, the times have changed. And now it feels like, well, at one point anyway, direct sales was then the thing that people laughed at you for. Like, you need to be on Amazon, right? Yeah. And now there are authors who are really doing it. So that does make me wonder, what's the thing for the next 15 years that everybody's going to be laughing at, saying that you can't do. But that's another topic. We're here to talk about direct sales. I want to kind of hear from you to kind of open this up. How did you, because you didn't start in direct sales for your fiction. How did you wind up there? What was the path that led you to direct sales? Yes. And we can go from there.
So I had been 2019, the end of 2019 is when I met Steve Piper. He runs the Ammo program. And before then, the 5 years before then, I had been published, and I was publishing somewhat erratically because I had small, like, babies at home. But I think I had just under 20 titles out. Not quite 20, I think. Just BookBub loved me, and then they didn't. Facebook ads were sort of on the scene, but not like they are now. And Amazon ads were, like, all of it was still very tenuous. And I was just so frustrated. Like, I know my books are good. I have so much traction in other areas. My sales are not reflecting it. I have no idea what to do. And I was already really drawn to this idea of a B2C, a business to consumer. Like, instead of like me going to Amazon and Amazon holding my customer, I really wanted to connect with my actual readers. And like, I had worked with Kelly Lytle when he was part of Find My Voices to do authors for audio. Like, I was part of that pilot program. So I was already kind of looking that way. And then I started the Ammo direct sales model. I'm not part of the mastermind anymore, but that's kind of what started me at the end of 2019. And then I had it going starting January 2020, where I had like the whole like Facebook ad to a landing page and selling, and then my Shopify store set up. And then COVID happened, and I just was right place, right time. Like, I'm definitely that person that's going to say you can't replicate my story. Unfortunately, there's a lot you can learn from me, but you can't replicate what I did in the same way because COVID really pushed me out. So, Jack, if you joined BookFunnel in 2019, you were there when, it was hand over fist, just like money from over COVID. Like, we were...
Yes.
At some days I was spending like $4,000 a day in ads. We did like $250,000 in ads on Facebook that year because there was just no one else was. And so I was like, here, making money just selling books by the thousands, right? So that was probably, you were there for that, like, whole thing. And then the funny thing about direct sales is it's never, just like the publishing market, it's never stagnant. So you have to adapt to it. And so what I've learned over the past really 5 years is direct sales is my home base, but you always have to find new ways to make it work. You have to change your direction, you have to change your model, change your focus. But really, B2C is my direct. I am direct to my reader. I never say the word direct sales to my reader because that's a like internal author.
Sure.
But I'm always like, you can buy from my website, you can buy from me. And that's like the core of what I offer, is that relationship with my reader. And more than just sales, but in everything. That's kind of where it began and started developing.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of advantages. I know when we had you on a couple months back for a talk on Facebook ads with Damon.
Yeah.
The one thing that I remember you saying that kind of stood out to me is you do get to engage more with your readers because they are your readers, not to, you own their, right, not them literally, but you know what I mean?
The connection.
When somebody buys from you on Amazon, you don't get their contact information. You don't have the ability to follow up with them and all of those other platforms. Amazon is the one selling them the book. Amazon wants to send them recommendations. Amazon wants to do all that stuff. And sure, you can try to build a mailing list and all that stuff. But that, I imagine, is just much easier to do when they're buying direct from you in the first place from the get-go.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And then if anything, even if they never buy from me, it provides me an opportunity to learn from and connect with them. Like, it gives me an opportunity to warm them up through my email and say, this is what I offer, blah, blah. Like, it's amazing how many people will not open the first, second, third, fourth, but they'll open the fifth email. And then all of a sudden it's action, right? Like,
yeah.
With Amazon, they might see my books 20 times and I would never know. But on my email, like, at least track, like, well, they opened this email, not this email. And that alone is like, well, then that subject is probably better. Now I have more data. I can make better decisions versus, I don't know, like, I threw it up on Amazon.
Right. And it worked.
Yeah.
There's some magic to it with Amazon for sure, I think, where you don't know everything that goes into baking the cake. Right. And with direct sales, you have, it's a double-edged sword. And I'm sure you could speak to that because it's not all sunshine and rainbows, right? And maybe we can get into some of that because there's some addition, like, you have to be Amazon then, right? Essentially, you have to do all the things that Amazon is doing, because that's what readers kind of tend to expect, right? In terms of customer service, all that stuff, right? Deliverability. And then BookFunnel can obviously help with that. We have tools for that, but that's something that you kind of have to take on. But then the benefit of that is that you get that access to your readers in a way that you don't get on Amazon. So yeah, on that note, like what would you say are some of the biggest challenges you've had to face with direct sales that maybe you weren't expecting, or
Yeah. The biggest challenge in direct sales, at least that I think I've combated the most consistently over the 5 years, it's really visibility. You have to pay to play, right?
Yeah.
Or you have to write to play. So for the
Sure.
last 5 years, I've run ads to the first, so 2020 and 2021, I ran ads all of those years. I stopped running ads in 2023 and 24. I didn't run any ads for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just started running ads again, except for what Damon and I experimented with last year. So basically what I'm trying to say is I tried 2 different direct sales models. I tried a direct sales model where I was heavy on advertising to create visibility. And I had this huge email list. And so I said, I'm tired of advertising. I'm a writer, not a marketer. So how do I get my book in front of people? And I said, well, I have a lot of people. What if I just write more books? Like, that's what they want. And then even if that doesn't work as well, I have all these products that I can use on the other side. So I decided to try that. So for 2 years, I didn't pay for any advertising. I just wrote a new book and launched it the first Friday of every month in paperback, ebook, and audio. And I drove visibility and sales through an existing audience and then sort of training that audience to bring more readers to me as much as I could. I'm like just really training them for word of mouth, trying affiliate programs, a bunch of stuff like that. So visibility is the hardest thing with direct sales because everything has to come from you. I don't have an Amazon algorithm working on my website. You know what I mean? Like you have to kind of create that. So that's difficult. The next thing that sort of stems from that is even if you are creating your visibility somehow, you're creating the visibility. So you have to decide like how much of my time budget goes to marketing, so I'm getting visible, how much of my time budget goes to new product creation. The hard part about our jobs as self-publishers and entrepreneurs, I don't think enough of us think of ourselves as entrepreneurs, is most businesses, the CEO, the driver of the company is not doing the creative work of the company.
Right.
But we are doing the creative work of the company and driving it. So that creates just this really weird, how do I do both? Right? Like how can I hack this so that I'm both handling the business side and the actual product creation side, which is just you'll still get that if you're not direct, but when you're direct and creating your own visibility, I think it can be just a little harder because it's a little bit higher of a hill time because you're battling for SEO and stuff.
Yeah. So you mentioned something that was really interesting before we go off onto anything else. You mentioned affiliate programs and some referrals. Talk to us a little bit about that, because obviously you built an audience, you built a mailing list, and that is probably what allowed you to go without running ads for that period of time. And so that's something that authors can aim at, right? What are those? How do you do that? How do you get readers to become your little,
minions?
Your minions, right? And bring more readers to your audience and grow your audience with your audience. What are some of the things that you implemented?
That's a great question. Because Shopify has so many apps that can connect to it, and Shopify is my website, katiecrossbooks.com. They have stuff like GoAff Pro, which is an affiliate program where you can basically sign up with them and bring people in as affiliates so that every time someone makes a purchase, if they do it either through an affiliate link or with a code, they get a discount and that affiliate is tracked through GoAff Pro. So Kim, for example, gets her sister Holly to buy a couple of my paperbacks. Holly puts the code in, then Kim is going to earn a 10% kickback.
Sure.
Beautiful program. Most entrepreneurs use it in a bunch of different ways, right? It's one of the biggest ways to actually build expansion and audience. Authors don't use it as much because it seems like there's a lot more back-end work. I liked it. We tried a couple different things where I had set aside a special email list. I got my rock stars who were excited about it to tune in. I would meet with them once a month to iron out the issues. I kind of had an issue. I can't remember what it was with GoAff Pro. And in the end, I just culled the program because I was like, this isn't worth my time right now. If I were to do an affiliate program differently, I would actually just hire a member of my team to take it and say, these are my goals for it. I don't care how you make it happen. Let's start with this pool of people who've already said that they would, some of my rock stars. And then I will show up to help you in these ways and have someone else running all of the details of it because I was trying to pump out a book a month. So the affiliate program, I was the problem, which is usually because I'm the problem. Hi, it's me. Another just very basic standard thing that I've done is just I'm always trying to show up visibly for my readers so that they would we have a true friendship. So I do Coffee with Katie every Friday at noon on the first and third Fridays and at 7 p.m. at night on the second and fourth Fridays because I have a big international audience. So Australia comes on the evening, we switch it around. And just being present and physically available and talking to them, and they've all become a family, this whole thing outside of me now, that alone has just set the foundation for who can you tell about this book launch. I'll tell them, I will send any audiobook and ebook for free to anyone that you love. Pick one, Miss Mabel's, let's do it. Flame, let's do it. Let's send it for free. Who do you love? I'll attend your book club for free online. Anything like that, just getting face to face, making those offers to spread that out forever. I've had one of my readers, Jennifer, I think I've been invited to 7 or 8 book clubs with her. And she just has everyone buy it and I show up for book club and she moves and we do it again. And every day.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So face-to-face is another one. And then an incentive program on my website. It's not necessarily affiliate, but it does get people excited because with every purchase they make, they earn reward points to then either make coupons, earn specific free shipping on an order, whatever. That's, again, not affiliate driven, but people do get excited. We call it Sky Miles for books. And just to get people to kind of understand what we're talking about with it. And so they're kind of excited about that. We'll sometimes tell their friends if you buy from her, you get points. There's a lot of points. So that's something else that we've tried.
Right. That's not something that a lot of authors, it's not a conversation that I've really seen happen in self-publishing. This idea of referrals. And I mean, obviously there's some attempts at spreading the word, from reader to reader, right? But an affiliate program, without direct sales, it's not possible because
exactly. You have
Amazon or whatever platform. Control. Yeah. You have to have that in order to, but taking control over how your books are delivered to your readers gives you those advantages. It gives you access to data, and then it gives you the ability to do things like that, which Amazon is essentially monopoly, or whatever, even, Barnes & Noble, any other platform where you sell your books. They're doing the same kind of thing. It's not just Amazon, right? They're the ones who are benefiting from all that data.
Yep.
And offering people points and so forth and rewards to get them to spend more money on Amazon, not necessarily with you. So with direct sales, you can you can funnel that your way. Emma, I know you had some questions.
Yeah, she said a keyword in there that my indie pulp mind latched onto, book a month. Now, does direct sales take some of the pressure off having to publish fast? What indies consider fast, the rest of the world considers a book a year fast. We consider that phenomenally depressing. Does direct sales take some of that pressure off, or is it just as important?
I think it puts more pressure on if my income is launch driven, right? Because I wasn't advertising, and so I made money if I published a new book. I mean, and I still made money otherwise, right? And that was some data I tracked, what's my average order value on a non-launch month versus a launch month? How much are people just ordering on average from my store every day, regardless of new launch or not? But I think the question is more the actual model of new reader acquisition matters. And what I mean by that, because it sounds really nerdy, is am I getting new readers by ads or am I getting new readers by new books? And if you're getting new readers by new books, that puts the pressure on whether you're direct or not. The pressure that being direct removes is depending on if I do pre-orders on Amazon or whatever, I don't worry about no one's
the deadline.
Yeah, it's deadline or whatever. Or just the stress of what's going to happen when I launch on Amazon? Is it a bad launch day? Is it are the Amazon algorithms just recalibrated? Are the keywords sucky? I don't, so many people are I ranked this high. And I'm I don't even think about that. So when I launch, to me, it's I know probably how much money I'm going to make because I know you read through, I know what the former launches have done. And so I can say, I need a little bit more money next month. So I'm just going to crank out a novella with it, embed it into the story. And then we can see, I can project $1,000 more or something, whatever. I think it takes some of the guesswork out, and that to me removes pressure because I don't have like the emotional uncertainty that I'm chewing on in the back of my mind, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And having that audience is another part of that, and knowing it all comes back to the data. And this is why I love the general message is everything's so consistent because you have the data. And so if I launch, I know how much, not I, but you know how much you're going to make. That's right. When on Amazon, you don't have that level of predictability. Even if you
days, right? Like till you get the money.
Yeah.
Right.
There's that too.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, because I imagine with Shopify, you get access to those funds pretty much.
Days.
Right. Immediately by comparison, right? I sold on eBay back in the day. And I remember when you'd get paid through PayPal, like instantly whenever you sold something. And so I imagine obviously not quite exactly the same. There's a little bit of a delay, but you have that money to work with. Whereas, waiting that 90 days and then especially if you're spending money on ads, there's a potential for you to have a really good month on Amazon and then have to wait to get that money. And you could be using that on ads to keep that momentum going, but then it maybe kind of slows down by the time you get there. Whereas with direct sales, you have access to those funds pretty much immediately.
It makes it easier to run your company when you actually run off cash flow, not predicted income from Amazon. I should be getting more because I had this. We'll see what lands.
Yeah, that too.
Nope, this was my launch. This is what I had. And it's here now so that I can pay off this advertising. And now I have this, I know I'll have this much to go into next month or whatever.
Sure.
And it's never an exact science, right? I can say, in general, I can expect to sell this many of this series. In the past, this series has sold this many. It's about a third of what this other series sells. But that means I know this series sells better. So I'm gonna work harder on this one. It just kind of spider webs out when you can look at it through the lens of direct sales and actually see how and when people are buying. The other cool thing kind of goes with that is, for example, I have this book. It's called Forgotten Gods. Yes. I have so many books, you guys. That's Forgotten Gods. And then a novella that comes after it called The Returning. And it's this moment where a love triangle has ended and we see who she's chosen, but we see them come back together kind of deal, right? It's a very subtle love triangle. And it's this very valued moment, but it didn't fit in the novel and it couldn't go into the next one. And so I was like, we'll just do this very special novella where the reader can actually sink into it. And I link it at the end and I say, hey, here's this one. And I can track how long after they bought the novel and then bought the novella. So it gives me an idea of how fast these people are reading.
Uh-huh.
It also gives me an idea of I sold this many of the novel and this of the novella. So that's I can see a read through. But then people all of a sudden will just pop up having never ordered from me before, buying that novella. So I'm like, okay, they came from the retailer, right? And so now they have this. And so I have emails built in to kind of put them on an onboarding sequence so that they get to learn more about me because they just purchased from to kind of pull them in. And then I will see people buy that novella and then start buying from me. And so you get all of that information to watch your actual sales flow happen in front of you. It's undeniably powerful.
Right.
That was actually one of my questions was, do you purposefully direct people that purchased from Amazon and I don't know if you have your books on, Kobo, Barnes and Noble, any of the others, but do you specifically start trying to get them and I guess you just answered that with the novella, if you bought this one book and now you're buying this little novella, you're coming to me without any other sales. And that obviously is telling you that. Do you have other points of entry where you do that? Or is it just that one that you're seeing that with the novella?
Oh, we have it's like a game that we play. How can we get people off of Amazon and into Katie Cross Books? We call it KCB. So it's a game for us, catnip. We love it. How do we do this? So for all of our novels now, moving forward, it's been I think since last year. So I create a short story within the novel that you don't have to read, but is highly valued and desired by the readers, right? So at the end, I'll say, hey, so any ebook that goes up on all the retailers, I distribute through Draft to Digital, BookFunnel, Kobo Writing Life, and KDB. Those are and Lulu for paperbacks. So any of them that go not to BookFunnel. So BookFunnel is always my special one. If they did not come to me through BookFunnel, there is a thing at the end of the ebook that just says, hey, I have this story that explains XYZ plot thing, or like this additional romantic scene, like something very highly valued that I built into the story. This is important. It can't be just a scene. It's something built into the story that can only be answered by the short story. So you can get it for free right here. And then they just subscribe for it. And then they go through an email process. But if they buy from me, it's part of them. Like they get that in the ebook, they get it in the audio, they get it in the paperback. So I have separate paperback covers made just for people that buy from my store versus Amazon. They're going to be bigger on my store and smaller on Amazon, just to do anything I can to like up level the experience from my website, add more value, and draw people in. And I go through every single new subscriber that I get every day as part of my data collection. So if I have somewhere around 10 to 15 people per day that are somehow moving like lists in my whole big thing on ActiveCampaign. And I go through every single one so that I see what's happening, where, who's doing what. And what I see is people who've never purchased from my website that are on all of these extra lists coming from the retailers to get those bonus scenes. So, and then they go through my onboarding sequence. And then if they have certain criteria like interactions, responses, purchases, anything, they go onto my weekly newsletter list, which they have to qualify for. So those bonus scenes are big entry points. The novella is a big entry point. I have Facebook ads that I run. My website has like an offer, like we have a bunch of different feelers out there to pull people in, but across the board, the thing that works the most is the link at the end of the book they just finished to buy the next one on my website. Almost every single time. It's like I can look at a new conversion I've never seen before and it came from, I use reader links through Author Helper Suite. It comes from reader links almost every time.
So I imagine if you're like a KU author or wide and you want to start dipping into direct sales, you can use that strategy, like link a bonus novella to your direct store and they can only get it there. Because I would tell you how willing they are at least to buy direct.
And I sometimes have it for $0. Dakota Kraut does this a lot too. If you follow him, he's been going direct for the last couple of years. He will just charge $1 or $0. So, but then we make them go through the checkout process and it registers them on our store as a purchaser. So we know that even for $0, they're willing to go through the checkout process. That's a big qualifier actually, because if you can get them to go through it once, it's going to be a lot easier to get them go through again if they're excited about the content.
They really wanted that book.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, especially when you're not sure, because, like the world is weird and maybe this is a scam. I mean, we see, a lot of people who are willing to put, even just their name and their email address, even if they don't have to put a credit card in, because a lot of the times they don't ask for a credit card on a $0 thing. But just putting your name and email address down is enough that says, okay, these people are serious. This is a very strong person, a heavy lead, basically.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Any author can do this, actually. It's something that I recommend authors who are participating in BookFunnel sales promos do. So even if your book is in, like, let's say you have a reader magnet. Let's say all your books are in KU, but you have a reader magnet that you're putting in BookFunnel promos. Start a direct store, put your reader magnet on it for free, and start people going through this process. And if you're not doing it in any other way, do it in a BookFunnel sales promo, because you can use a universal book link to point to your direct store and have people go through that process. And you can start gathering some of this data. And most of those stores, Shopify will integrate with your mailing list service. PayHip will integrate with your mailing list service, so you can add them directly on your automations. I just have to plug this here because this is the thing that I know I've mentioned before. And so for authors who are like, well, how would I approach that from I'm over here doing KU and you're over here doing direct sales. How do I start building that bridge? And I think that's put your reader magnets on a direct store for free and start driving some traffic there. And then you have something you can experiment with and play with. And then maybe you do something, creative and different later down the road.
The other thing too for KU authors is maybe also think about this differently. So people are always asking me, well, I'm in KU. And what I always want to say is then stay there. You obviously, especially if it's working for you, stick that strategy right there and then just create something else to go direct with.
Yeah.
That's adjacent. So I'm doing the reverse. So Audible Studios just acquired a 5-book clean romantasy series that I'm narrating with them. And so the whole plan is I'll launch it direct to my website for a month and then it'll go in and stay in KU. I'm not even going to put it anywhere else. It's just my store and Amazon and all of them will just be KU books. I'm not going to try to of course I'm going to reward my people for buying from me, right? And they get it early and it's great. But for everyone else, it's going into KU and they will read it there and it will be a KU book. So it's same, but different. And then it actually creates a totally different income stream that you don't have to try to cross-pollinate. Like you don't have to make one thing be the other. We're authors. So just go write more books and then write them to the audience that exists there. So I'm writing these clean romantasy to the KU audience based on other clean romantasy books that I'm reading. And it's not at all what I'm doing on my direct sales. So my current direct sales is Alcara, and that is where Alcara's business model will always be like this, right? And Alestra is my new one. Alestra will probably always just be KU. So that's like, think about this differently is the advice that I usually give people that bring up KU. Like, think about direct sales differently. Don't try to make them the same. Do the same, but
Right.
So I had a question. You had mentioned that your the people that come in through the different entry points into your newsletter, they get put into an automated sequence that is different for each book or wherever they came from Facebook ads or from the back of the book, that sort of thing. But like, you said something along the lines of like they have to qualify or they have to like there's something that they have like a qualification that has to do with your newsletter. What did you mean by that? What is that for?
Yeah. Oh, it's such a fun question. I'm like so nerdy of this stuff. I love it. So when I tested this very thoroughly, so we can like help these authors not have to spend as much money as I have. What I have found over time as I work with email acquisition and like getting readers to subscribe and all this stuff is you want people on your email list, but you also don't want people on your email list. So like sometimes emails like places cost like a mortgage every month, like to pay for ActiveCampaign or Klaviyo or wherever you are. So you want enough people so that you're growing and making money, but you don't want so many people that it's just cost prohibitive. Like there's too many people on your list that just aren't doing anything. So over time, I have tried a lot to bake in tests to see if these people are actually acting in the way I want them to. And if they're not, how long do I give them before I say goodbye?
Yeah.
So some of that just kind of depends on the automation that they go into and how they find me. But some of the qualifying behaviors that I look at is if they've replied to an email to me, that's super high quality, right? Like either they had a problem and I got to interact with them, or they loved the books, or they're interacting because I ask a question. That's high motivation. That's a warm lead. So I'm going to reward that by either putting them deeper into my automations and they get more, or whatever it is, depending on it's all a little bit different. And it's probably too complicated to go into the nuance here. But then you get these people that get the free book and either put in the wrong email or decide they don't really want it and they just never open the emails. We've all done it, right? We just never open the emails. So they go through this whole automation and they haven't done anything. But that doesn't mean I've given up on them, right? So I have them in a separate email list that I talk to differently. They're warm leads. They're not cold leads, they're warm leads because they signed up and they've been through it. And so I just nurture them a little differently until I finally say, okay, you've been here 6 months. I'm not doing anything. We'll just unsubscribe. Like we'll just take them off the list so I'm not paying for them.
Yeah.
But then I can always use that email in like a retargeting campaign on Facebook. Now that I wouldn't reach out to them again, but anyway, so then I'm not paying for them. So opening emails is a big qualifier. It's a good qualifier. It's not a big qualifier. Like clicking on links is a bigger qualifier than opening emails. Responding to an email is bigger. And across the board, if anyone buys anything at any price, they get on my weekly. If they have purchased from my list, they get on my weekly account right away. And every single person that gets onto my weekly account has to go through the onboarding automation. It's like a 5-week automation where I basically like give them the information about what they have coming. So we talk about Sky Miles for books. We talk about Coffee with Katie. I have this reading list that's like everybody opens it because they want the reading list. Like just the emails that have over time been opened the most, been interacted with the most. I keep all of them. They go through that and then they go into my weekly. So there's like just multiple steps to train people on what to expect on being with my list so that I'm keeping the right people and I'm not paying for the wrong people, basically. And then along with that, every quarter, I have an alert set in my Google Calendar. I Mail Floss, which is like a company where you can put the emails in and they scrub out the fake accounts, the bots, the bounces, and like scrub it out to keep it really clean.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I said, every day I go through and see what's happening in my email list so I can keep track of any brokenness, or I can see where leads are coming, that kind of thing.
Yeah. 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 It's a little segue here because you talked about narrating audiobooks.
Yes.
And audio, I know, is, you also mentioned that when you were releasing, with your releases, you like to release all formats at once. So there's ebook, there's paperback, and there's audio ready to go. So audio is also a big aspect of your business, right? That's also a huge part of it. And are you, correct me if I'm wrong, but are you doing self-narration for your own audiobooks?
Yeah, I have been for 3.5 years, I think.
Okay. What are some tips? Because this is something we've talked about. Obviously, BookFunnel's audiobook features, which were in beta for a long time and now are released, right? They're out there after a long beta. But something we've talked about with all, because there's some authors who are like, well, hiring a narrator is cost prohibitive for me at this stage in my business, or they're looking at AI narration potentially. Give me the sales pitch for self-narration. I know it's not for everybody.
Sure,
it's really for everybody. But like, if you were going to pitch me on like, hey, you should narrate your own books, Jack, because you got just that silky smooth voice or something. I don't know.
Sexy.
Yeah, no, not really. Okay.
So I actually came at it from a different angle. I was at a transition point in my career where the current business model I was at wasn't working and I had to figure out something new. And so I sort of swallowed my pride and said to my readers, what frustrates you about my books? Like, what could I do better? What are the areas that like stopgap you? Like, what can I do better for you? The feedback I got was, we never know if or when audio is coming out. And I would buy every single one of your audiobooks because I love your books, but I'm a truck driver. I delivered Cokes, like they really wanted audio. It is really inconsistent with audio. And then the inconsistency of launching was a big one too. And a bunch of people had said to me, like, you should narrate your own audiobooks. And I'm like, I could do my own book covers, but it'd be really ugly. That's a really bad idea, right? Like, not my talent. But what I saw was all of these titles that didn't have any audio, and audio has been doubling year over year for years.
Yeah.
Like, it was a huge market. And to see like what a huge market it is and how audio is just king these days in a lot of ways, whether it's podcasts, YouTubes, like whatever it is, I just was like, there is so much money on the table here and there's a lot of opportunity that I'm missing. But in the end, what sold it for me was I can give a consistent experience to my readers. Part of it came actually, I was like at Walmart or Target one day and I was looking at the Dove like products. And like, do you know those like corn muffins Jiffy that are like in the small cardboard box?
Yeah.
Like, this is ridiculous. Yeah. I was looking at that kind of stuff and I'm like, man, they look exactly the same. Jiffy looks exactly the same as it probably did in the 50s, right?
Uh-huh.
But it's on the shelf. It shows up. I know what to expect. I have an egg and some water and we have corn muffins that are really crumbly, right? So it's like, to me, I just remember thinking they show up same place, same time, everywhere. Dove. Everywhere. I love their deodorant. Bought it for 20 years. Like, they're always at the store. And I remember thinking, I never do that. There's no consistency. Like, my readers never know if they're going to find my book. They never know when the next one's coming out and they never know how it's coming out. So I sort of resolved myself to the best reader experience I could and to be more stable. So I decided to go into audio because there's a ton of money on the table with unlaunched audio, but also it gave me the opportunity to not only like beef up my backlist, but also to form a trusting relationship with readers that they hadn't given them before. So I started doing it so that I could say the first Friday of every month, I launch in paperback, ebook, and audio, and I will never launch if I can't launch in all three. And so everyone gets this experience at the same time, because the other pain point for them was they like the audio listeners felt left out. Like, I can't go to the book clubs, like, or I can't do this because I didn't get it, right? And then what happened once I started audio, and I'll get into my tips for it, but what happened once I started audio is I could not only make sure that they got the products, same time, same place, showing up all the time. I'm trying to Jiffy this, right? Not only could I do that, but they got a consistent experience. So accents, speed, the way it shows up, the way it's delivered, they just know it's there, right? And so it was really amazing. What happened is I just fell in love with it. I love it. It's actually, I hated it at first. I was so insecure. I didn't want to hear my own voice. I didn't think anyone else wanted to, but it's developed into this passion that I just love recording my books. I don't have plans to record anyone else's. I love recording my books because I get to bring the characters to life. So that's kind of the background to it. My tips or like my thoughts on it is I bought a Udemy course for like $30. This guy named, I think, Paul in the UK is really sweet. Did the course, kind of made it my own. Hired this guy named Arthur that if anyone wants a referral to, just email me, katie@kcrosswriting.com. Arthur and I worked together one-on-one. He taught me, kind of helped me critique, talked about speed, like all that stuff, got me all set up in my closet, helped me figure out the equipment, the DAW, and then I just had to like bite the bullet and start doing it. I had to like be imperfect and not good at first. And I started with novellas and then I got to novels, and now Audible Studios acquired 5 of my books and I did the narration with their team, and it's just grown. It's just only been amazing since then.
Did you start off with a lot of equipment that, like what sort of equipment would you suggest just if you are on a budget and you want to start off? Like, what do you suggest?
So I said to Arthur, I want to walk in my closet and record, and I want to send you files, and I want to do that again and again and again and again. And I don't ever want to move my setup. I don't want to play with the DAW. I just like want to know exactly what to do to get this done. So I have an audio interface, a microphone, and a microphone stand. And I just stand in my closet and I just record in my closet. And even Audible Studios, when they were like, do you have a booth? I'm like, it's a booth. But actually they were like, this is awesome. And it sounded perfect because my clothes are on either side of me. There's a blanket on the wall and I have the doorsteps and a blanket down. So I didn't pay for a booth. I just do it in my closet. It's been 3.5 years in the closet. And then I bought a Shure SMB8 microphone and audio interface. It was, I think, under $1,000 for all of the equipment. And then I earned that back, I think, within a launch. So yeah, I've never changed equipment. I've never even moved my equipment. It's just been rinse, wash, repeat. I just walk in, I record, I walk out for 3.5 years. Amazing.
Right. There's something to that consistency of knowing you're going to go in there and everything is where you left it the last time.
Yeah. It's
I bet like it's a routine that you just have to kind of work into I know a lot of authors will read aloud their books to edit them. And I think maybe there's I don't know if that's something you do or not, but while you're narrating, do you ever catch anything where you're like, I should reword that, or that doesn't sound natural? Yeah.
All the time. When I was recording this audiobook 2 weeks ago, it's Audible Night. We just did the first 2 in this 5-book series. I was like mortified because I didn't realize how much I relied on that the narration pass. Actually, like, well, that's awkward or that's wrong. Like, even though it's been through extensive edits, there's always proofreading. There's always things that I'm like, we have to delete this paragraph. This doesn't work. Like, because you're reading it out loud, you comprehend it so differently. So it's actually a very integral part to my process now to be reading the book out loud because I have to look at every single word in the context of all the other words. So I highly, highly lean on that to produce really quality books.
You actually answered a question I've been thinking about because I have a release coming up and I want to do an audio, and I'm like, should I delay it or should I just wait, be patient and wait until the audio's done too and release them? It'd be like maybe a week or 2 delay. I mean, come on, girl. I mean,
totally worth it. I think the important thing here, it's not that you have to publish a new book every month. It's that your readers want predictability. So it might be that I'm going to publish a new book every April.
Sure.
Every April, I'll have a new book for you. Even every 6 months, I'll have like, it doesn't even have to be like on this rotating schedule because some people just can't do that. But if you can somehow create a predictability and stick to it, then you keep the readers that are attracted to what you offer. So maybe that's, I'm going to publish right into KU every 3 months on the 15th of the month or whatever, or even just every 3 months, and I'll email you when it's up, and that could be any day of the month. As long as you explicitly create expectations, then you're going to, all the people that like those expectations are going to stay because it's stated.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
And then if something comes up and you do have to delay a release, because they're so used to your consistency, it's actually easier for them to forgive you, I imagine,
100%.
than if you're like all over the place to begin with, right?
Right. I mean,
stop talking about me, Jack.
I never said I was. You just outed yourself.
I think what does the hard work for that, though, Jack, honestly, is the face-to-face. People just love me because I love them, right? Like my readers follow me because I'm genuinely concerned about them. And so, like, for example, you guys, today, I fulfilled my Kickstarter special editions and realized I forgot the dang ribbon. Like, there's no ribbon. There's a pre-production sample without a ribbon. Didn't catch it. Like, I just realized I don't have a ribbon on there. And so I'm going to have to go to all my readers and be like, I'm sorry, I forgot your ribbon. That's totally on me. But I know they're going to laugh with me because we know each other and they know that's just Katie. Like, at least it wasn't like the sprayed edges or something, right? Like, and then you build this like trusting relationship where they get it. Like, I'm a mom, right? Like, I have 2 small kids and there's just so much more forgiveness and understanding. But I'm also like, first Friday, if I say it, it's done. Right? Like,
right.
I've been very careful about launches that way. So,
Oh, I was going to ask, do you have any data? I'm sure you track it on how many of your readers will buy multiple formats. So are your audios eating into your ebooks at all or vice versa?
If anything, the ebooks augment the audio because my readers will like gush so much about my audio and me reading it that people who have never listened to audio then go buy the audio because I'm reading it and because I love it so much. So what I see is I have readers come through and just buy paperback, ebook, and audio every time the pre-order goes live. I just put up a pre-order for next January that people are already buying. And when I put a pre-order up, I put paperback, ebook, and audio. So, we're gathering pre-orders on paperback sometimes like a year in advance.
Yeah.
Buying it anyway. So I see with that consistency is people then actually book buyers actually want more. Even though they've read it on ebook, now they want to experience it on audio. And then when they have it on audio and ebook, they love it so much they want a physical copy. And then if you do a special edition, they really want that one. So you actually see your average order value and your lifetime value of a reader like increase exponentially as you have availability in all of those ways.
What is that average order? I'm going to ask for specifics here. So like what's your typical pricing of like an ebook, paperback, audiobook? And then when you bundle those together, are you giving them some kind of discount? Just so people have like, because most authors, especially watching this now, are probably publishing on Amazon. And so they're somewhere in that, $2.99 to, $6.99 range, the majority of them in there. Some of them are on KU. So it's a totally different paradigm of pricing. And ebooks are often kind of seen as this very kind of dirt cheap product. You have to sell in high volumes. So when you bundle all those together, so obviously your readers want that, and there are readers of yours who are buying all 3. What is that average order value? Because I think some people would want to know.
So I priced the first book in my series at like $3 to $4.99 on my store. So it's $1 less, and then it's like I think it's $3.99 for the first and $4.99 for the second on my store, and then I think on Amazon it's $4.99 for the first and $5.99 for the second. I used to exclusively be $9.99 for every single ebook on every single retailer, and my store was $7.99 and $6.99. So I had a much higher price point. However, in September, probably just like everyone as we went into Q4, it was like, man, sales are down, like what's going on? And it'd been a rough year for everyone. And even my husband and I are like, man, groceries, right? So I was like, let's just do a price test for 6 months. Let's drop everything down to like a little closer to what some people are in the market. Originally, I priced up on the retailers because I didn't care what happened on the retailers. Like I was like, well, I just want it to look really good on my website. So I priced up on the retailers, but once I brought the price down, I actually did see quite a bit more sales consistently showing up through the retailers. So that felt worth it so far. I'm going to give it like 6 months to really compare apples to apples and honestly, a year would be even better. Just because there's so much market fluctuation in a daily basis that to say apples to apples month to month it's not going to work. But
right.
So that's the general price point. My average order value is typically probably closer. Actually, I can tell you. I track it from month to month, like what the average order value is. Let's go to 2024 because I have them. So daily average order value, like last January was $20. In February it was $8. Nice. $17. April was $13. May was $17. April was $12. July was $13. August was $16. So the highest was $23 in November, and the lowest was $8 in February. So that's just the average order value, right? So you can see that it's triple what a single book is.
Right. No, and that goes to show that offering multiple formats is, whether you're doing direct sales or not, I think even for folks out there who aren't doing direct sales, offering multiple formats is essential especially for your super fans who are really, they want to have it in every format.
They're
right?
so fun. I know, I love it. They just love the experience. They want to stay in Alcara. They love my characters. And so whatever they can do to do that, they want to stay, right?
Yeah.
Do you think those readers who did go ahead and purchase at a lower price point, are those readers who would not have ever purchased at the higher price point? So you weren't kind of like cannibalizing anything, or?
It's really hard to say, honest. So I'll say this. A lot of the ad offers that I have are like, for a while I was doing 4 books for $10, right? So they click on a Facebook ad, they go to a landing page, they can either get the first book for free or they can pay $10 for all 4. And I've had so many people say, I couldn't believe it. 4 books for $10, easiest price I ever paid. And then if you look at their lifetime value, it's like $1,000 on my website. Right. So, and like, I have had some of my rock stars, like my beloved, say to me, like, I never would have tried you without that ad. So in some way, yes. But then also I see people dropping $300. They'll just like hit every audiobook I have. And like, they don't actually look at how much anything costs. They just want what they want. Right. And so it's hard to say. In general, though, I do think a loss leader of like a free book, or right now my current ads are offering 8 books for $10. I do think it pays out. I really do. I'm still gathering some data in terms of specifically my goal for this year is I'm launching book 11 and 12 in the network series. So I'm running ads that offer the first 8 for $10 because now I want to compare. I have all of my launch data. I want to compare and say, this is what I would launch without those preparatory ads. But after a year of those ads, my launch numbers increased by so many because I got people into those 8 books. Then they bought 9 and 10 and were ready for 11 and 12. And so I'll know by the end of the year better, like, was that a long-term strategy that I could just apply year over year, right, to keep going? So in that way, that loss leader for a cheap book at a low price would then make sense, right? Because now I'm getting people on my list and they're actually buying active titles. So they are putting cash in the door where I want it landing the most.
Right.
So yeah, I'm in general, I think, yes, I think it's worth it.
This kind of answers the question of where you need to be if you're going to seriously dabble in direct sales. You need to have a backlist that you can play with.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I really, I make my money off the backlist. I mean, launching helps certainly, but because I launched enough to like pay my bills and whatever, because once I launch a new book, they're buying, like, people are like, oh yeah, I haven't opened her email in a while. Now she has new books. I'm going to go buy all the books that I didn't get last time. Or I really liked this audio. I'm just going to buy every one of her audio, right? So that is we see that in my average order value, right? An average order value of 23 when my ebooks are like $4.90 means something else is being purchased than just the launch product. So absolutely.
So you had mentioned that you had done a Kickstarter and that you were just fulfilling it recently. Can you tell us a little bit about that process and how that's been going for you? Because that's like another stream of income. And, you know, what did that come about and how was the experience so far anyway?
It's a really fun diversification, like income diversification, right? Because I took a long time to try the Kickstarter route because I just wanted it to settle out after the whole Sanderson hype and all that stuff. Like, I just want to see what happens here. And I only did it because my readers were asking for hardcovers and special editions. They're asking a lot. So I was like, all right, we'll try it. And the goal was I want a big chunk of money that I want to create a process with these Kickstarters, and I want a $10,000 profit so that I can like punt that $10,000 into savings and prove out payroll for a few months, right? So every time we're in a Kickstarter, 10,000 profit, proved payroll, and then everything is profit from there. And so that requires you to actually like establish the Kickstarter process, the cost, like whatever happens. So I said, we'll try it for 4 books and decide after that if this is like a worthy thing to keep doing. And if the setup of it is something I can punt to my VA and then I just am present for the marketing and that kind of thing. So we're still proving that out. We did the 2nd special edition. The 3rd one's coming up. We're optimizing it now. Like, obviously we had some lessons to learn, things we didn't do well, like forgetting a ribbon. Obviously we're pivoting. I love it so far. And here's why, because Kickstarter provides 50% of the people. And this is the crazy thing about Kickstarter as a platform. And why I love them is I have people I've never heard of dropping $150 on my hardcovers. They don't know who I am. It looks pretty. So they're just dropping $150 on my hardcovers. And I'm like, I'll take that all day, every day. Like, if you're going to bring those people to me, sure, you can have 5% of my overall Kickstarter. And so I, of course, track the numbers pretty carefully. And I've done 4 Kickstarters. 2 are children's books, 2 are special editions. And across the board on all 4, Kickstarter has supplied, according to their metrics, if you trust their metrics, over 50% of the sales. But you can look at the readership and actually peg out, like, I don't know that person, I don't know that person, I don't know that person, I don't know that person.
Sure.
Or I know that person, I know that person, like on my list, like from my list that I've recognized. And you can kind of track that data a little bit too. So for me, I love it. It's fun. It opens up a new market audience because I do in-person sales too. So to have like really pretty foil sprayed edge hardcovers, it's a $60 to $75 price point in person that people can look at and be like, I want right now. So instead of like selling them a $20 paperback, I sell them 2 $75 hardcovers and my average order value just like quadrupled. Right. So yeah, overall, after having done 2 and preparing for the 3rd, I really like it. The 4th will kind of give me the data that I need to know if I'll keep doing it. But if I do, the plan is that's pretty easy, right? Like every 6 or so months, my designer knows it's coming. My VA knows it's coming. I've created a standard operating procedure and we just, like my launches, we just kick it out so readers know what to expect. And then we just kind of track to make sure we're getting new people and satisfying the ones that come back year over year.
So are these standalone books that you, for like the sprayed edged special editions, is that like a special, or is it a standalone, or are you doing like that same procedure with like books in the same series?
So it's the same series, yeah. So it's the network series that I'm most known for. So we did the first book, second book, third book. Third book is in July, and then 4th book after that. And if it's just not making sense, then those are the special editions we'll have. If it's making sense, we'll just get all of the Bianca ones done that we have. It'll be 12 by the end of the year. And then we would just go to a different series. The cool thing is I will never run out of special editions to like produce because I have so many books, right? So like we could do a special edition every 6 months for the rest of my life and probably still never catch up if I keep going the way. So it's something that I have ideas for and set goals for. So far, I'm achieving the goals that are justifying at least getting the first 4 books in the network series is volume 1. So we're at least going to get volume 1 in special edition, and then we'll kind of reevaluate from there.
Right.
Now, will you always have the special editions on Kickstarter, or is there any temptation to sell those direct, or maybe even launch a new release with a special edition?
I sell them direct after, for sure. Like you can go onto my website because I go through all of my orders every day, like, and just look and see what's sold. So if someone buys one, I can just crank it out. But I don't plan on launching off Kickstarter just because they bring so many special. Like I could not find those people on my own without a lot of Facebook ad money. So no, it's just like I've been very intentionally like I want to build the audience there that knows to expect me every 6 months or whatever. I want to eventually like say July and December, not December because that'd be a terrible month to do this, but like have like, okay, May and November are the months we do it, or I think March and September, honestly, probably ideal because you avoid the Q4 quarter craze. And then they just know on Kickstarter, like it's March, another Katie Cross special edition. And that audience on Kickstarter then has expectations of what I will bring them. And I want to just, I'm happy to pay Kickstarter and Stripe. So it's like 10% between Kickstarter and Stripe. And I'm happy to do that because I don't think it would happen on my store the same.
Sure. Well, especially if they're bringing so much of that audience. And in a way, interesting thing here, and I'm sure this is something like, you already know this, obviously, but you've got this diversification of income streams going on that I don't think, that a lot of authors, I think they see it as black and white. It's like, well, I've got to be in KU or I've got to do direct sales and be wide. Or this, I've got to be or I've got to do a Kickstarter with my launch, or I've got to do, or I just got to ignore it completely. And you've got these 3 things going. Obviously, your direct store is probably is what's paying the bills.
Yeah. Right.
KU, this new series going into KU and all of that. And then you have your Kickstarters as well. And they're each their own independent thing that, which there's some challenges. And I know that will come along with that. Like that's more plates you have to keep spinning for people who are getting, just getting started. That's probably something to aspire to, but But it's interesting at that advanced level, like you don't have to, you're not picking and choosing between those different options. You're doing direct sales this way, and you're going to approach KU this way because it's another revenue stream and it's another audience. I like how you refer to it as like an audience, and Kickstarter is another audience. And there's lots of things out there to think of it that way. I think is a paradigm shift for a lot of authors who have maybe written off, like, well, I'm in KU. Direct sales is not something I can even think about. Or, yeah, Kickstarter sounds like too much of a headache, which maybe for some it is. But
yeah.
if you can bring I imagine part of it is also you got to bring some of the audience for Kickstarter to really
for sure
spread the word. So there's that aspect of it too. You might have trouble with no audience just throwing something on Kickstarter and hoping that it's gonna go well. But yeah, I like how you phrase it that way as audiences, and you're able to see them that way, and then to also give them what they're expecting, and those expectations are going to be different in different settings as well.
Well, and I think the important thing to emphasize here, right, is that no matter what, my work never actually changes. So it's not like I'm creating Afghans to sell on KDP.
Yeah.
Like I'm writing books, right? And this is very important too. I'm staying in like genres that, like, I'm not going from like thriller, mystery, crime novels to fantasy. Like this is like my clean romantasy is almost seamless against my young adult fantasy. You know what I mean? Like they're the same. So really at the end of the day, I'm still just writing and narrating and producing books. I'm just doing them in different ways across different platforms. That's very important, because the whole heart of this operation runs because I know my writing process. And so by knowing my writing process, I then know how much time I have to give to, okay, well, what if we put a book in KU? What does that mean? That means this much time needs to go to whatever. And the other thing that I want to say is the reason that the KU diversification is coming is because my husband and I we need to build an addition on our house. And I was like, cool. Like, how do I get a second mortgage? Like, I need another income stream I can generate like a second mortgage from. And I was like, well, let's try this. This would be really fun. And so I started putting out feelers and we got things going. So that's another way I think people don't know to look at this business. Like, well, I want this at my house, or I want this to live my best life. So how do I adapt my business to bring me more money, but not change what I'm doing?
I think you're a really good example of someone who you're checking all the boxes. I mean, just here with going into KU and doing Kickstarter, like you're doing all the things, and then you're doing all the formats, right? That to some authors that sounds overwhelming, but the key there is that what you're saying is like your writing process stays the same, and that's the consistent part. And that being consistent is what lets you do all those things. Because I've talked to authors who are like, well, I wrote a book in this genre, and then I was really inspired to write a book in this completely different genre. So, then they're kind of going this direction, and then they're going in this direction. And I think that can be a little distracting when you're trying to build momentum on something.
I think I would never want to put a blanket statement down that says don't try different genres and don't up, because there are examples of people that have phenomenal results with that, especially if you're looking at romance. Like, I feel like you can really genre hop like different romances and still do fine. But me, in my experience, I did try that. I did clean contemporary romance with fantasy, and I just couldn't make both work. So I got rid of the clean contemporary romance and I just focused on fantasy. I genuinely love writing fantasy. Like, I sometimes write actually most of the time I write for 5 hours a day, right? So like I'm on my computer for 5 hours writing. It's like my best life. It couldn't be any happier. So it makes it easy to then diversify the offerings. And the Kickstarter, I'm not generating new content. Like, I have to coordinate the cover design, but I'm not writing a new book for that. So I can standardize that process, hand it off to Megan, and she knows how to fill it out with graphics. You know what I mean? So at some point, eventually, depending on where you're at in your author journey and what you're willing to let go of, you can create your SOPs, standardize your process, and then you are writing to create more of the content for the other.
Right. Because you're the only one who can do that. Right.
Right.
I mean, I suppose you could hire somebody to do the writing for you, but then with,
And as some people do, right? Like they start.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Yeah. So I think this brings us to a good transition to our final segment, the story behind the story. In this segment, we like to talk about our guests, their creative endeavors, what they're currently working on creatively, maybe their author origin story, so to speak, because everybody has a different, unique way that they got into writing and telling stories. I was dictating stories to family members when I was like 3 or 4, before I could even write, and I was drawing pictures to go along with them. So everybody has like their own unique story. So Katie, where did you find writing? How did you find this creative endeavor? Or how did it find you, maybe?
Yeah. I think it was just always in me. I remember writing stories in my journal when I was 5. I like won awards in 6th grade because I never had my nose out of a book. I had more AR points than anyone in the school. I got the special award for it, because I was reading all the time. I was reading really advanced stuff. I read Gone with the Wind in 6th grade. Just loved stories. I loved sinking into them, and it just seemed natural that I would like write them down. And so that was like a secret of mine. I would just like write all these stories all the time, and I didn't tell anyone or let anyone read them. And then I got my nursing degree, got my bachelor's in nursing. I was a cardiac nurse and a pediatric nurse, and still just writing on the side for fun. And then I married the military, and they wrecked my career, and I couldn't like work as a nurse while we were bouncing around with the Army. So I ended up well, I love to write. I was doing this free online writing class, and I just decided to like follow some writing prompts, and I did that. And Miss Mabel's School for Girls was born, which was Alcara, which is my whole direct sales Leviathan now. And I decided to self-publish it because it just seemed too inefficient and messy to go with traditional. I was like, I have to wait for someone else to tell me yes. Like, that's gross. Which it's not. But at the time, I just had this like mindset of like, I need to do this now. And so I decided to self-publish. I had a baby entrepreneur inside me I didn't know was there. And I loved it. It was really fun. I sold like 300 copies on launch weekend in 2014. And I was like, this is really fun. People were reading my book. And so I wrote another one and then just wrote some more. And eventually I was working as a home health pediatric nurse at the time. So at night I would go like watch very stable kids sleep to make sure they didn't have any problems with their trach or whatever. And I would just like write and write. And then when my husband started deploying more and we were talking about having kids, I was like, I can't be a nurse if my husband's like off to who knows where. And so when we moved to Fort Carson in Colorado Springs, I was like, I think I'm going to just write full time until we have kids. And so I haven't gone back. Like I eventually let my nursing license expire. It took me a long time. It took me a long time to like let go of it because I had a lot of mindset issues to work through. And eventually I let go of it. And now I'll never go back. I'll just always be running my company in my Montana mountain.
Right. So fill us in for those who don't know, like what the Miss Mabel's School for Girls. What's the whole premise? Introduce us to your world, your characters.
Yes. All right. So I write young adult fantasy in the medieval world of Alcara. Think Harry Potter, but medieval for girls. Like boys love it too. But it starts out with this witch named Bianca Monroe. She's 16. She's inherited a curse that will kill her on her 17th birthday unless she convinces the head witch at the school, Mabel, to remove it. But Mabel refuses and forces Bianca to fight for her life. It's the beginning of a soon-to-be 11-book series that spurred the world of Alcara, where I have over 50 titles across 6 or 7 different series that all interlope across a big timeline. So you can start at the beginning and read all the way through and just fall in love with the characters. Some of the characters have 13 novels. Some of them have 11. Some have less. There's a bunch of novellas and short stories that are really special to it. Yeah, it is like the Leviathan that I've made. I have interest in Hollywood that's ongoing and a bunch of other really cool stuff that's happening.
Yeah. Fun. So you mentioned Harry Potter, right? What were some of the seeds of inspiration? Because I'm guessing maybe that's a part of it.
Kind of. It was mostly I loved the magical school setting, and so I just took like a magical school, 3 friends that are girls, and put them into this enchanted, scary forest, basically.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where the comparisons stop. I mean, there's magic, but they don't have wands.
Sure.
Like. There's some comparisons. I think it's more closely tied to the Gemma Doyle trilogy than Harry Potter. But anyway, if people have liked Harry Potter, though, they love Bianca because, it's like magic that has spells. I don't ever say the spells. I never write them down, but there are spells. And just like that sort of delightful potions and sorcery and flying rugs and that kind of stuff.
it might not be quite story behind the story, but if you could say what the Katie Cross method is, like what's the Katie Cross method in like a couple of sentences? Because there's like the Satori method, and then there's a couple others I forget, but the Satori method is pretty. But what's the Katie Cross method?
Like for the writing or the marketing or
yeah.
The writing? Okay. I write a second draft. I write a first. No, I'm just kidding. So I plot out the story to 5,000 and 9,000 word plot according to like a 3-act structure. Sort of Save the Cat-esque. It's got like a first act, second act, midpoint, third act, all that kind of stuff. So I have that, and I have very general ideas for scenes. So I have the big plot, and then I'll have like scene, 2 sentences, whatever. Like just generally, this is what's going to happen. I know the goal, the conflict, the motivation for the main characters. Just like generally, kind of know what's going on, what I want to be achieved, what needs to be learned, and then I get my Scrivener file ready, and every single scene gets a new doc in the Scrivener file. I have them like color coded and stuff if they're first draft or second draft. And then I copy the scene that like for like chapter 1 and the scene prompt, and then I copy it over and I write it. And I usually, when I'm first drafting, if I'm doing my 1 launch a month schedule, then I first draft 10 to 12,000 words a day. My highest I think is 17,000. Sometimes I don't do that much. It just depends.
Is that dictation or are you ruining your fingers? Damn, girl.
It takes me about 3 to 4 hours. So I will just write. And then I usually have about 60,000 words. So it takes.
I just want to say that's hardcore. You doing all that with your fingers. Yeah. That's hardcore.
It feels that way, but here's the mindset hack that helped me get over this, right? Because I hear this all the time. Like, oh, I would hate writing if I did that, is what I hear all the time. This is how I got through that. Elena Johnson and I had a really good phone call, and she helped me too. But one thing I remember thinking is when I was a nurse, I certainly got tired on my shift, but I never got to a point in my shift where I'm like, I think I'm tired of doing this. I'm just going to go home, right? Like I couldn't be a nurse for 12 hours. That's crazy. But it's like, I was a nurse for 12 hours. I was like starting IVs. Like I was doing the thing for sometimes 18 hours. So I remember thinking like, how can I not be in my house and like write 10,000 words if I like it, right? So I remember thinking like, I am copying out and like stunting myself so much. So I just started working up to it. And the truth is after a while, you just love it. Like I just love writing. So the 10,000 word days, I'm not exhausted. I'm not tired. I don't hate writing. I just am like done writing for the day and I go do something else. Or normally like I get the writing done and then I go to email. I do writing first and then email on those days. So I'll first draft in like a week or so. And I have this established. So even my team knows the first week of the month, I'm actually audiobook recording. The second week of the month, I'm first drafting. The third week of the month, I'm second drafting. And the fourth week of the month, I'm third drafting. And then I send it to my editors. They get me the previous months. I go through it in like a day or two. I narrate it. And then the second week of the next month, I'm in the first draft. Right? So that was the Katie Cross method. Is I just knew I'm doing this week. And that was like different every week because I'm a mom, right? So sometimes getting 5,000 words in the morning, 5,000 words in the afternoon, and doing email in the evening, like whatever, like I had to be really flexible with it. But I just knew like it's Friday of the second week. I still have 30,000 words left. I'm going to ask my husband to like take the kids all morning on Saturday. I'm going to go to Starbucks and I'm going to kick out 15,000 words. Then I can do 15,000 words on Monday and I won't be too far behind. So I could just generally say like, oh, I need this, or this first draft is going to be a little bit shorter because of how the story is. The second draft is going to take me longer. So I'm going to take a day less on the first draft, give that to the second draft and go right into it. So it was just like, it was never like, I'm on, like I have to go. It was more a basic approximation. So I knew I was moving along the road. If I was at the end of the second week and I hadn't started my first draft, we were in trouble, right? Like, ah. So then I would just tell my team, hey, we're going to have to pivot. What flexibility do you have if I get you this draft on this day? Or I would say to my husband, hey, like the kids were sick this week. Can you just take this whole day and I can get my job done while yours is off? So we would just then make a new plan. And it was just basically knew my targets and where I needed to be and got it done.
How do you rest and recharge? Like, because you have to. You sound like an executor, and I know executors get penny energy from working, but we still have to recharge. How do you do that? When do you do it?
But like, think about it. I mean, that's 4 hours. Like I have 24 hours in my day. So I'm just writing 4 of them. And so after, like, I go on hikes in the middle. It's not like I sit down for 4 hours and write. I'll write for an hour, get up, make a cup of tea, come back, go for an hour hike. That's really recharging to me. Come back, write another hour. Maybe I have a call with this, write another hour. That feels like a really easy day, right? Because, and then at like 3 o'clock, my kids get home at 4, from 3 to 4. It's like, you know what? I'm just going to read for a little bit. Or I think I just need to vacuum. So like whatever I need to do, it's not like so many people think it's just this like hard, stressful charge, but this is the work I do every day. So it's not any different than like if I'm starting IVs in the hospital, right? It's just the work that I do. Like I just normalized process. Like I'm just at my computer doing it. So today at 9:30, I finished a call with Reddit and I sat down until I was like, you know what? I've got the BookFunnel podcast. I've got to get this draft in. I'm like 2 days late. I'm just going to sit here until noon and then I'm just going to get it done. And I'm going to go on a hike to be ready for BookFunnel. And that's exactly what I did. And it worked out.
So would you say you write for about 45 minutes out of a 6 hour? Because I'm about to calculate. About 45 minutes out of a 60-minute period? Or are you writing that entire 60-minute and then you take a break?
Yeah. And I mean, there are times like I didn't take a break this morning. I wrote from 9 to noon or 9:30 to noon.
And I want to emphasize, because there are some people who are going to watch this and they're going to kill themselves. This works for Katie. It works for her brain, her energy level. She can do this. If you cannot do this, there's nothing wrong with you. Like,
Katie is just better than you. And that's okay. Katie is just better than you.
I want to try it. So I'm trying to get like some data. So like, okay, you're about 50 words per minute. I could beat that with dictation.
It's important that you understand that it wasn't like I sat down and started doing that every day.
Yeah.
What I actually did, I had a spreadsheet and then I just said, okay, I'm going to write. And I had a spreadsheet and a timer. And I said, I'm going to write for an hour and see how much I first draft. And so it was like, okay, I did 1,200 words. And then all of a sudden I was doing like 2,000 words. And then all of a sudden I was doing 3,000 words in an hour. And I was able to do it more. So there certainly were days where I was like, my brain is really full because I just wrote a lot of words. But then I would just figure out how to recharge and like what made me feel better. And then I would come back at it the next day and it was a little easier. And so for 3.5 years, like I've been doing this, right? And so it really just becomes a skill and a love. Like I just love being in words. And that's the other thing. There's a passion for that, right? So yes, I'm glad you said that caveat. This works for me. There are other people that do it too. You don't have to do this. I worked into it. It's just a way to think about word count that I had to find. We don't have to be martyrs. Like this is just the work we do. Like it's just what I do. My husband goes to work. I go, you know what I mean?
And I think the habit is probably the most important thing. Like if you can't do a straight 60 minutes, well, can you do 15 minutes every hour, every 15 minutes for a 4-hour period every day or whatever your habit is? Can you do it consistently? I mean,
Yeah.
Well, and especially for those that have full-time jobs, you know, that's the hard part is to, you know, look at it in a different way. As if you have a full-time job, you know, 4 hours is a lot of your day. But when that is your job, then it's a little bit of a difference. But it's a good mindset change because a lot of us are like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine getting that many words in. But you're right. If this is your job, if this is, you know, we all have done hard jobs. So this isn't any harder.
It also offers you a lot of freedom, though, because if you know you can crank out 3,000 words if you sit down and focus for an hour, then even if your day goes to absolute hell, you'd be like, okay, 9 p.m., 10 p.m., it's okay, because I know I'm going to sit down for 60 minutes and get my words done so I can, you know.
Other thing, too, is, Kelly, it made me laugh. You were talking about that writer that wrote this book at the tire shop or whatever. I'm like friends with my local tire shop because they do our oil changes. And they just know, like, if, like, they're like, we have like a 3-hour thing. I was like, no problem, I'll just work. So I just sit there and work. And now they like have my books because they are asking about it. And I just know that, like, I just take my computer, I get to do things that my family needs done, but I get my work done while I'm there. And I can just like kick the words out. However, I will say, I remember working a full-time job and I remember trying to work a full-time job. And, you know, like I remember that pressure. And there is a little bit of pressure where I say this, I have the privilege of doing this, right? Like I've made this choice, we structured it way. So this is my job. And there's so many days where I'm like, I'm going to do a 3-hour hike and I'm like, no, like this is my job. Like it's cool. I get to like go do it on my porch so I can be outside. But at the same time, it's like, I'm not in the mood to edit, but this has to get done. And so you just like find a way to get into it and eventually get into it, and it's fine. But there's a level of discipline that you really have to lean into to crank out an ebook, paperback, and audiobook the first Friday of every month with high quality, right? And that's just what I would to lean into.
Right. Now, how much of that process is helped by your outline?
So
because
she sounds like a planter to me. She sounds like a planter. I'm sorry, Jack.
Sure.
100%.
Yeah,
I'm a planter.
Well, yeah. But still, you said you have like an outline that is like 5,000 or 6,000 words long. Is that right? Or did I mishear that?
Yeah, I mean, it could be anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000, depending on the length and the complexity of the plot. Like, if there's multiple POVs, it's going to be like a bigger one so that I can make sure all the threads come together. But I absolutely couldn't write that fast if I didn't know what was coming, because it'd be an editing disaster, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm so unproductive if I don't know where the story's going, if I can't see foreshadowing, if I don't know what's happening. So creating those outlines, actually, I dictate the outlines a lot when I'm driving. So if I'm like going to Idaho for spring break to see my family, I'm like, cool, I have these 3 outlines. I'm going to start just talking out my ideas, and then I run it through ChatGPT, just clean it up, and then I copy and paste and create the outline. And I'll have outlines done a year ahead. So just like you were saying, Jack, like, well, like today I finished this and I was like, sweet, like I still can't record today. And I really need to do this like short story, but I outlined it the other day when I was like on my hike, like, hey, these are the ideas. I have the short story. So boom, ready to go. So outlining is like kind of sometimes I have to make time for it. Sometimes it just happens by dictating when I'm hiking.
Yeah. No, well, I've been getting flack from people in the YouTube comments and from my 2 wonderful co-hosts, because I've been in our tips segment, I've been mentioning tips like you should outline like this, or you should write an outline. And I'll get somebody being like, I never use an outline. I don't need an outline. I just write. And it's like, that's fine. And that works and I think it comes down to knowing your writing process, and then also not listening to the naysayers who are going to tell you that, you're wrong for doing it your way. But I thought that was when you mentioned your word counts, and then you mentioned that you have this like really long outline. It's like, that's maybe for, I don't know, it might be the minority of authors who do something like that, but maybe some folks should try it if they struggle with, like, they're getting through their first draft and it feels like a slog, and then they get stuck somewhere and then they leave it, and then they have 40 unfinished projects.
The thing is, I used to freelance plot. I could plot like a bleep. It is so much ingrained in my head that I can do it as I go. But to your point, because I dictate, I do need to know the beats of the scene before I start dictating.
Yeah.
Or the dictation is gonna.
Yeah. Sitting there, it's almost worse than looking at a blank screen. Like when you're just trying to start, if you're just like dictating without a plan in your head, it makes it very, very difficult to do anything. And I like the idea that because most of us, when we think about a book story, we kind of have those overarching bigger plot lines, the beats that are like in the Save the Cat or the midpoints and all of those pieces. And so I like what Katie was saying. It was like dictating that part and then getting it out of your body, like getting it onto the page and then having it organized, through whatever ways that you end up organizing through ChatGPT or whatever. And then having that like, okay, what plot holes do I have? Can I see that I've already like establishing, I'm going to need to do something here or here or here. And, I think that part of it is really beneficial to people, even that if you are a, planter or a pantser, which I think I'm actually more in the middle, where I kind of need that overarching storylines, but I don't always know all the details in between.
And then there's not all plotting is on paper or typing. It's like I'll think about the story and have it like in a movie in my head for sometimes weeks ahead of time. That's a plot, y'all.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
for sure. Yeah.
Anyway, to get this segment back on track, Katie. Tell us some more about your books. What do you have coming up? What's your next big release? Yeah, I know you've got this series that's going to be going into Amazon. That's kind of a new thing, a clean romantasy. Tell us a little bit about all the things you got going on. What readers can look for from you in the near future?
Oh, I'm so excited. So May 1st is when the Romantasy series that's going to go into KU goes out. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to launch early to my website in April or launch late to KU in May. I'm still trying to figure out my strategy. But yeah, that'll be May 1st if you like clean romantasy. It's like 1700 Age of Sail kind of feel, like ACOTAR on the high seas. Not fae. It's not like fae, and it's closed door romance, but it's really high action, like forward moving new magic systems, that kind of stuff. So it's like a high action romantasy that you see in other places like When the Moon Hatched and some of those other like big titles. And then I always have stuff going in Alcara. So Bianca, she's the network series. She started Miss Mabel School for Girls. Her 11th book is coming out in April, and that's super exciting. So that'll be coming out. And then I have a co-written novel coming out March 1st. It's a Nordic-inspired young adult fantasy that finishes out a trilogy. So that's another really fun one. And then in July, we have a Kickstarter. So lots of fun stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, lots of stuff coming out. That's great. That's great. Well, Katie, thank you for joining us today for the BookFunnel podcast. It was fun. This is technically like we had you out, on Zoom for that talk we did with Damon. It's kind of like you've already come back, but I think we're definitely going to want to have you come back in the near future.
I love everything again.
And dive in, because we spent a lot of time on direct sales today, but there's like so much more. Like, I'm really interested to see how like your Kickstarter stuff goes. So much we could talk about audiobooks and self-narration. You really are.
I want to talk craft and productivity. I mean, craft and productivity is underpinning. You wouldn't have all the business if you didn't have the craft and the productivity.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly.
That'd be so fun. I think another good one that we don't hear a lot about, someone reached out from Author Nation to have me maybe talk about it next year, is my standard operating procedures too.
Yeah, right.
Actually are the backbone of all of this, is my SOP.
Right, when you're running a business. Yeah.
Well, and finding a person that can help you, execute those operating procedures, because that's really hard. A lot of authors look for quality VAs or whatever, and it's really difficult to, know when to leverage your business and then how to do it and how to find somebody that is able to do everything that you would do. Because that's the thing, is like,
right.
Well, I know how I would do it. It's trying to get someone else to do it the same way I want it done.
Because you have to train them, and you got to think about the time it takes to train people, and like
so much good stuff on that for sure.
Yeah, that's tricky. Really fun. So we have plenty to talk about on a second episode of the podcast in the near future for sure. All right, well, thank you again, Katie, for joining us. It was a blast. Thank you, as always, to my co-hosts Emma and Kelly, and we will see you all in the next one, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you for watching. Check out these other videos from BookFunnel, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.